Hello and welcome. I'm Claire Pearson and I'm the founder of Orchard Retail Group in the UK. I'm here today to share a little bit about me and my experience and my journey, and that's what's led me here to this moment. But probably more importantly, I'm here to talk about the Orchard Retail Group, what we do, who we are, and how we can support you. But first of all, I have to apologise. I'm no podcast expert. Those of you who know me know that I love a good natter, ideally over a coffee, and I can talk all day long about global supply chain, logistics, retail, your retail expansion plans, but ideally in person. However, we get asked these questions a lot: who we are, what we do, and how we can support you. So what better way to clarify them questions than over a podcast, which is accessible to all? So here goes. So I'm recording this podcast in Cheshire in the UK, which is what I call home. And I have 30 years experience in global supply chain, logistics, and retail leadership roles. And if I reverse all the way back to the start of my career, it started with Wincanton, a third-party logistics provider, who've recently been acquired by GXO here in the UK. I then transitioned into a role working for Sainsbury's, again in supply chain and logistics roles, during a time of significant change and transformation for Sainsbury's. And then I found myself hopping on a plane, I was going to say train, hopping on a plane and heading over to Asia, where I called Singapore my home for just over 5 years. And during them 5 years, I worked for the most incredible retailer called the Cotton On Group. For those of you who've not heard of Cotton On, they're from very humble beginnings, Australian brand based in Geelong, just outside of Melbourne. They went from one brand in one country to multiple brands. Quite frankly, a sort of global fast fashion powerhouse, multiple continents across the globe. Such an incredible, phenomenal growth story. And during my time in Asia for Cotton On, I led supply chain and logistics for Cotton On in that region. It was the most phenomenal growth story. Life happened and I returned to the UK. And I've been back here now for just over 10 years. And during those 10 years, I worked for TJX. Similar story, growth, an expanding retailer, growing rapidly. Again, in supply chain and logistics leadership roles. Oh, and for those of you who are not familiar with TJX, TJX is TK Maxx and HomeSense. So again, another phenomenal brand who was growing and it was growing at pace. So there's a theme here. The majority of my experience has been working alongside and working for growing emerging retailers. It's what I love, it's my passion, it's my calling. To give you a flavour of what some of my roles have involved, I've managed, for example, large warehouse and transport operations. With that comes managing large teams. When you work for a growing retailer, there's lots of change on a regular basis, and that might be moving warehouse, for example, into a larger facility because the brand is growing. You also choose on occasions not to do all the work yourself. And on occasions, you choose to work with partners, third-party logistics partners, who maybe, for example, specialise in e-commerce solutions. So I have experience in regularly working on tenders and going out to tender for a piece of work and selecting the correct partner for the task at hand. So that gives you a bit of an idea. And of course, those roles have been done across the UK, Europe, and Asia. So that gives you a bit of a flavour of my experience. So just need to rewind to sort of 2024. For me, on a personal note, and look, this might be a whole different conversation for a different day on a different podcast. But in summary, a shift was starting to happen internally. I was certainly a woman of an age where I was emotionally and physically going through a lot of change. And I needed to work through and process and get realigned with what my purpose was. And as I say, that took quite some time during 2024. I knew I was still passionate about all things global supply chain and logistics, and really passionate about supporting growing retailers. And I had and have this big calling to help and support others, to give back, to use my experience now to help and give back to others. Then something quite magical started to happen. But first of all, I just need to rewind all the way back to my time in Asia, where I was working for Cotton On. I was working for a gentleman. My line manager was a gentleman called Glenn Keast. He was the chief operating officer of the Cotton On Group. And as I've explained, I was leading all things supply chain and logistics for the Cotton On Group in Asia. There was a gentleman called Travis Robertson who was doing exactly the same role for the Cotton On Group in Australia and New Zealand, reporting into Glenn. And then Brent over in the United States, same role, reporting into Glenn, leading all things supply chain and logistics in that part of the world. We were a close-knit team, a tight leadership team, working for an incredible leader, for an organization that was growing unbelievably quickly. It was an incredible time. And as I say, we were opening stores like bags of candy. We were opening new countries frequently, new brands into new countries. And of course, you had to be laser sharp with your execution, with your operational execution. And it was an incredible time, a phenomenal time. And as I said earlier, life happened. I came back to the UK and we went our separate ways. So back to the end of 2024, the beginning of 2025, something magical really did happen. The universe did its thing. And very naturally, very authentically, I found myself back in conversations with Glenn. Glenn, by this time, had already opened and was the founder of Orchard Retail Group in Australia. He's based in Geelong with the most incredible team. Not long after that, Brent joined the reunion and Orchard Retail Group USA was born. And you're absolutely right. Not long after that, so sort of mid-2025, Orchard Retail Group UK came alive. And that's why I'm here today, to talk a little bit more around the services we offer, what we do, what's our purpose, and how we can help you. So I'm going to talk to you shortly around some specifics and specific examples of what Orchard Retail Group can do to support you. But in summary, between us, and apologies, I forgot to add, Travis is also part of the Orchard Retail team, and he's involved across all regions. And between the four of us, we have over 100 years of experience. It's bonkers, of working for growing, emerging retailers. And we simply now are here to support you through your growth story. And we generally have made the mistake, so you don't have to. Between all of us, we have a whole breadth and depth of experience. As I've already mentioned, new stores, new countries, at pace, new brands. So why we exist is really simple. We're now here to support you and to support you really well in whatever your growth story is. So an example of how we can help you. You may be a founder-led retail brand. You're phenomenal at what you do. You're phenomenal at what you create, whether that be, t-shirts, retail clothing, whether that be a pure e-commerce solution, whether that be you're manufacturing some beauty products. As an entrepreneur, as the founder of your business, there's no doubt you are incredible at what you do, but you have a lot on, right? And you might not be an expert in supply chain and logistics. And that's fine. Like, why should you be an expert in everything? So that would be an example of where you could bring us in as logistics and supply chain experts, where we can lighten your load. You concentrate on growing your business and growing it really well, whilst we do the heavy lifting with your supply chain and logistics solution. That's one example. Another way we could support you, you could quite simply just need some interim leadership support. You might have one of your key leaders who are off on some extended leave, and you might just need some interim support, whether that be for a month, a couple of months, 6 months. You don't want to recruit permanently, but you need to remain the consistency and the continuity of your business and your business's performance. That would be an example where you could recruit and work with us. An example could be where your sales are growing really quick, but unfortunately, your profit isn't growing as quickly, or even worse, your profit's eroding. We are absolute experts in the field of scaling and scaling really well, because it goes back to the experience of us all having worked together in fast growing emerging retailers. And scaling your business isn't easy. So this would be an example of where you can bring us in to work alongside you, to look at your processes, your commercial arrangements, and advise you to scale and scale really well to protect your profit margin. Another example would be just that you need some short-term project support. You might be rolling out a new IT system, a new warehouse management system, and we've done a few of them between us, I can tell you. And you might not want to recruit a full-time head permanently because you don't have that need, but you might need a full-time head temporary or some part-time hours in your team to roll out a new project. That is absolutely an area where we can support you in your business. With the abundance of global experience between us, we can offer freight reviews, freight forwarding reviews to ensure that you've got the best service at the most competitive rate. As your business grows and as your volume grows, you should be leveraging that. Your commercial arrangements with your providers should be becoming more competitive as your volume grows. But you've got your day job to do, right? This would be an example where we can come in, we can step in, and we can do some freight tendering for you to ensure that your business is operating with the most competitive commercial rates. Okay, you might just need a sounding board. As I've said, we've been there and we've made the mistakes. So you might just need someone around your table to be a voice in your room, to be the voice at the end of a telephone call, to just advise you, use our experience, use our mistakes to ensure that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did. And that is absolutely a service that the Orchard Retail team can offer you. You might need a network design review. As you're growing, your current solution may no longer be fit for purpose, or you can see that it's going to be no longer fit for purpose. That's the ideal scenario, to bring us in at that stage where you're growing and you're growing rapidly, and you know in future the infrastructure you have around you is going to be sort of nil and void. That would be an example where we can step in, do a complete network review for you, whether that be nationally, internationally, whether that be your e-commerce solution, whether that be your store fit out provider and solutions that you currently work with. And you've got the day job still to do, right? You've still got to trade your business. You've still got to operate and execute daily. So that would be an example where we can step in and work alongside you for a short period of time to do a complete network review. And if you'd like, we can hang around and actually implement that, the outcome of that review as well. This is my favorite because I am so passionate about global supply chain. your international expansion. Now, you could be a brand that's growing really rapidly and you want to grow into new markets. You might want to do some test and trials. Let's use an example of you might want to come into the UK market. You may want to test and trial the market first. You've got an opportunity to do a pop-up in London at Christmas. You don't have boots on the ground though here in the UK. Let's make this up. You're based in Australia. With being present in all major markets, with having boots on the ground, we can take that pop-up off you, for example. We can start on a solution from start to end and ensure that your testing and trialing in new markets goes really well. You might want a full store setup from rent to lease all the way through to the fit out, getting the store ready, helping with your recruitment. We'd call that store key turn ready, the store being key turn ready. And we can absolutely help and support you in that space. Also, your logistics infrastructure in new regions might not be fit for purpose. And that's where, again, we can step in and help and support you through your growth, expanding into new markets, into new countries. Exciting times, that one. Just on the international expansion, I'm just going to share quickly and briefly with you around a brand that I've been fortunate enough to work with who are based in Australia. Incredible, the most incredible team, and feel really privileged to work alongside them. They were expanding really rapidly, and from afar, they tried to establish an e-commerce solution in Europe. And unfortunately, the provider they used wasn't fit for purpose. It was costing them financially and costing them from a time perspective, and also was probably starting to have a detriment effect on their brand and their potential growth plans. We stepped in and offered this particular brand a service which resulted in a full retender process. So we went out to market, issued a tender, and now have successfully partnered them with a logistics provider in this part of the world, in the UK and Europe, which is fit for purpose. Might not be the biggest, might not be the flashiest, but you don't want them to be. You need your partner to be the right fit for you where you are in your business at that time. Now, what's happening here now, and this scenario is playing out as we speak, they've now chose the right logistics partner. Commercially, they're in a far better place. Their outcome and their service to their customers is going to be far better than what it ever has been before. They're not going to be distracted by the noise and the negative feedback from their customers, and they can crack on and they can grow their business, and they can grow their business really well now that they have the right logistics partner. So that's an example, a recent example of where we've done some work with a client who are not based in the UK, are based in Australia, and they needed some boots on the ground here in this part of the world to help secure them the right logistics partner for their business. So whilst I'm not great at recording podcasts, I love listening to them. And I've listened to many a founder, and Charlotte Tilbury springs to mind, one that I listened to her. And she talks a lot about, she's just an incredible brand, right? But she talks around, at the beginning, as a founder, you do everything. And the reality is, and most brands have started there, you're probably picking and packing out of your own backyard. But as you grow, what Charlotte Tilbury was alluding to is that as you grow, you've got to learn that you can't do everything. And that's okay. You carry on focusing on what you are phenomenal and really good at, and let us concentrate on what we're really good at to help support you. Does that make sense? So hopefully that gives you a flavour of what we do and how we can support you and your business. You already carry enough, And bringing in the right support at the right time can enable you to focus on what you're really good at, growing your brand and growing your brand really well. And that, my friends, is why Orchard Retail Group exists. We'd be absolutely privileged if we could be a part of your story. But for now, until next time, see ya.